What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about the state of Sly Cooper entering 2024. We're back again. I think I've done this the last 2-3 years, and I gotta be real. This year has been the most depressing. We're going into 2024, obviously, with probably the least amount of hope we've ever had. It's just been so far removed, right, from the leaks that, hey, there is a Sly game happening, and everybody getting very, very excited, and then to just be stabbed into the freaking chest, stabbed in the heart with, obviously, this is not happening. It's been a while, and we're kind of left with, well, there's just nothing, right? There's no whisperings here, whisperings there, but I want to talk about just a few things kind of on my mind with Sly Cooper into 2024. Is it hopeless? All that jazz. And obviously, if there's anything Sly Cooper related, I'll be covering it on the channel, and one day I think it could happen, okay? I really do believe it. Okay, so going into 2024, well, what do we have? The only thing that I can think of from an optimist, kind of perspective is remasters. Now, there's been some signs in 2023 and going into 2024 that remasters is going to be something that PlayStation wants to do. We've heard rumors of God of War, and, Infamous was always a pretty well-selling title, again, from Sucker Punch, but specifically God of War, and then also even from just studios that Sony has themselves. There's been some, we've talked about Nix's, right, on their website. They've talked about remasters. Remastering is something that they're going to be doing, not just PC ports, right? So, okay, well, maybe you can have a dedicated developer to just put out remaster collections of games. And, well, there's plenty to choose from, and Sly Cooper doesn't even necessarily have to be one. When you think of God of War and you think Resistance, Infamous, you can come up with a few before you get to Sly Cooper. Obviously, I jumped to Sly. I think a lot of us jumped to Sly kind of immediately. So, that's the crux of my argument, right? Going into 24, is there a possibility that remasters are kind of front and center of what PlayStation wants to do? Well, maybe even this Insomniac thing that happened, right, the hack, it's been shown, and I think quite well, even though you don't like to see it happen, in the way that it did, remastered games do extremely well. And if Sony wants to look at it from, hey, we want as much money as possible for as little effort or money put into the project as possible, it definitely, at least from the Insomniac side, it seems like remastering is the way to go, right? Their remastered Spider-Man games have significantly less budget than the new ones that are coming out, and they actually sell like hotcakes. They sell really, really well. And I think there's something to that. I don't just think that Sony, we saw that with specific numbers that were hacked, right, from Sony, but I think you can go across the industry. I guarantee you the Mass Effect, collection, how they did those three, there's no way there was as much money, let's say, put into that as the new Dragon Age game or the new Mass Effect game. And you know what? That thing probably sold pretty darn well. And it's been kind of said, right? Like, remastered games are it's sometimes the way people kind of jump into, whether it's the game itself, that kind of game base, or even the console, okay? So if you're looking at it from Sly, I think, and I've said this for a while, almost like low effort, low risk, like everything's low for Sly Cooper, and I don't think necessarily that that's a bad thing, right? It wouldn't take all that much to put the first 3 games, and if you want to do Thieves in Time as well, right? Because now you're multiple generations. Thieves in Time was obviously PS3. We did the 10-year anniversary for that. We're actually on the 20-year anniversary. 2004 was Sly 2. So it's been a while. Let's put these things together and let's get them out there. And I think it would cost very, very little. And I think the obvious issue with it would be, well, would people buy it? How much do these games need to sell in order to make a profit? And for Sly, it depends on, I guess, how much you put into it. I don't think it would be all that much, okay? So strictly from an optimistic perspective, and I've been saying it for a while, right? Like, how do you get Sly Cooper back? Well, you have 3 options. You do a new Sly game, and that can be split, right? You do a Sly 5, you do a Sly reboot. You do a Sly remake, which that costs more money, right? So let's just go for, again, like the lowest effort thing, but something that I do think would still be impactful. You cannot play, like, through PS Now, you can do the, cloud thing. And I've never really been a huge fan of the cloud gaming idea, or at least, that's not how I'd like to play it. Maybe that's the better way of saying it. If you gave me the disc, or even just the download, and it literally had Sly 1 through 4 together, because you got the Sly Collection on PS3. I actually own that physically. And then you have Thieves in Time, which is separate, right? Also have that on disc as well. So just putting those 4 things together, I think, is the right move. Again, what I think would be like a sign in the right direction would be specifically, let's just get a remaster of any kind, right? So not just Sly. So if you give me a God of War remaster of 1 through 3 in 2024, I'm willing to start to, okay, well, maybe there's a push for some of these older games. But I really think it would maybe take a Infamous, or like Resistance never sold either. Sly, I think, actually did sell for like what they were expecting of it. Resistance, for what they wanted, never really sold. So maybe an Infamous, because Infamous did always sell, and those games were always received well, sold well, all that jazz. So maybe you do like an Infamous collection and then go from there. But, you know, I think the title and the overall, you know, premise of this video is still, you know, this is a sad state of Sly. It's tough because we are, like I said, so far removed from everything. It's such a deep cut. But I guess one final thing just to throw in, and this is all of this has been me reaching. So no accusations that I'm reaching with this video, because I already know that. You don't have to call me out on it. I already know. One other thing, okay? Not to make this a console battle, because I hate that stuff just in general. But, you know, you look at what Microsoft's doing. I think Microsoft had a big year. I think it's going to continue to have big years. You look at PlayStation, they, from what, you know, we see with Insomniac and Spider-Man, they have a spending problem, at least with part of their company. I guess what I'm getting at is this. It's time to diversify. You're diversifying a little bit with the live service stuff, okay? And you're trying it. I mean, none of those games are out yet, so you can't really judge if they've worked or not, right? I think Sony needs, and I've been saying this for a while, I think they need to go back to that kind of creative period they had with the PS3. The PS3, and obviously like very creative for PS1 and 2, but PS3, with their backs against the wall, right? PlayStation was losing, okay? They, I think, had some of their most, you know, out there kind of ideas, games like Puppeteer and things that you just would not see nowadays. I think we need to get back to that. Now, the issue, again, every good thing has to be matched, you know, with an equal. The issue is that spending that I mentioned, right? It's tough. And it's not just Sony. I agree, as an industry, or understand, I should say, it's harder to take risks. You can't throw the money at these games like you used to, because they just flat out, they cost so much more. A game that would be however much million, you know, back in the day is maybe triple, quadruple it now, right? So a Sly game being maybe, you know, very, very little to produce it back in the day. Now, even though I wouldn't consider it necessarily taking a risk, you absolutely are, right? Because you have to put more money. But I guess the point with me reaching and just kind of like throwing it out there, not just Sly, but something I'd like to see PlayStation do over the next couple years is you can still like, I want the big games. You give me those big, huge games that cost $200-300 million to make. There are risks, but you do them anyway. You have that. You got your live service. They're already doing it. We just have to see the games, you know, coming out. I think there needs to be that third kind of section of PlayStation that tries to go back and tries to pull some things out. Does that necessarily mean Sly? No, maybe it's a new game that is like, maybe even like a Kena Bridge of Spirits, which was not them, right, but it was PlayStation exclusive to start. Something like that. I mean, like, that's the energy. A Kena Bridge of Spirits really is the energy, I think, of that PS3 era, where you had actually a lot of those games, not just one. That's kind of the issue, right? For every Stray or Kena Bridge of Spirits, that's like 2 in the last 2-3 years. Yes, there were a couple more, but big. They stand out, but they are, I guess, still under the radar, right, so to speak. But you only had 2, and at least 2 that I'm thinking of right now. But I think, you know, to really go back to that era, you would need 5, 6, 7. You need a lot, right? So hopefully that's something over the coming years. And can that help get Sly back? I think so. Because I think you think about Xbox, maybe they go hard, and I hope they do. They go hard on Spyro. They go hard on Crash. I mean, those were PlayStation icons, and they have that kind of cartoony, more kid-like. Crash can be extremely difficult, but, you know, in general, if they're going for that direction, well, if Sony wants to compete, right, like Sony already needs to find a competitor for Call of Duty, right, for years in the future when they don't have it. So you need to do that. But then, you know, on a small, like, you fight your battles and stuff on all different scales, right? It's actually a war overall. So you have that. Well, what about fighting off the Spyros and the Crashes of the world, where you really don't have anything like that? You had Jak and Daxter, that's gone, and you have Sly Cooper, and that's gone. So can we get those back, right? Maybe we just have to wait. I mean, like, the longest term thing that I can think of is maybe you literally wait for Sucker Punch. You know, like Insomniac seems to have some sort of pull where Ratchet and Clank games are not as expensive as Spider-Man games. They cost a lot of money, but they're not that bad. And they kind of are break even, right? They don't make an outrageous amount of money, I guess depending on which one you're talking about. But we know that Ratchet and Clank is coming back, but it's very, scarce. They're not doing it all that often, right? So with Sly, I guess far out, we're talking 5-10 years down the line. Does Sucker Punch have any of that pull, just like Insomniac has? Can Sucker Punch say, hey, we're doing the Ghost of Tsushimas. We want to keep going. We want to make these big games that make a lot of money, make a ton of money for you. But can we, every so often do something kind of on a smaller scale that still costs money? Maybe we even lose a couple million on it. Can we do that? Seems like Insomniac's allowed. Can somebody else do it? Can Sucker Punch do it? We might have to wait for that. And I don't really want to. I think it'd be best if it just left Sucker Punch and just went somewhere else. Again, whether it's a new Sly game, if it's a remaster, you absolutely don't need Sucker Punch, right? So hopefully we get something. I'm trying to keep it very positive. I always like talking about Sly in a positive way. Hopefully it happens one day. Obviously, like I said, if anything were to ever spring up on Sly Cooper, I'll be covering it here. Let me know what you think. Make sure you're subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.